You're in the heart of Europe, not some forgotten corner of a faraway continent, actually Europe, with highways, EU flags, and good espresso, and there is a piece of land sitting right there, about the size of Gibraltar, that literally no country claims. Not Serbia, not Croatia, nobody. It just sits there. And when someone tried to build a whole new country on it, both Serbia and Croatia basically said, nah, and blocked people from even stepping foot on it. Wild, right? This is the story of Liberland, and honestly, it's one of the most bizarre geopolitical situations in the modern world. And the craziest part? The reason nobody wants it is actually the reason nobody can have it. Let me explain. First, let's go back to a river that couldn't stay still. The whole mess starts with the Danube River. You know the Danube, it runs through like 10 countries, it's in that famous Strauss waltz, it's iconic. But rivers are sneaky, they move, and in the 1800s, engineers decided to straighten out a section of the Danube that ran between what is now Croatia and Serbia to make it easier for ships to pass through. Seemed like a solid plan at the time. The problem is that the border between Croatia and Serbia had historically followed the natural curves of the river, so when the river got straightened, the border description and the actual river no longer matched, and nobody sat down and fixed it, because back then it was all one country, Yugoslavia, and when you're all in the same house, it doesn't really matter which side of the hallway you're on. Fast forward to 1991, Yugoslavia collapses. Croatia and Serbia become two separate countries overnight, and suddenly that unresolved river question becomes a very real international border dispute. The border dispute that makes no sense until it does. So here's where it gets properly interesting. Serbia says the border is the Danube as it exists today, the straightened version. That means everything on the West Bank is Croatia's, everything on the East Bank is Serbia's. Clean, simple, logical. Croatia, however, says no, the border should follow the old historical cadastral lines from before the river was redirected in the 19th century. Not the river as it is, but the river as it was. And because the river moved, these two different interpretations create a situation where certain pockets of land fall into a gray zone. On the eastern side of the river, there's a large chunk of land over 130 square kilometers that Croatia claims based on the old borders. Serbia controls it, but Croatia says it's theirs. Then on the western side, there are smaller slivers of land less than 10 square kilometers total that Serbia's border definition says belongs to Croatia, but Croatia's own border definition says actually belongs to Serbia, so Croatia doesn't claim it, and Serbia doesn't claim it either, because claiming it would mean accepting today's river as the border, which would cost them that massive 130 square kilometers on the other side. Are you following? Because this is the key part. Both countries are deliberately not claiming these smaller western strips of land because claiming them would undermine their own arguments about the bigger eastern territory. It's a territorial chess game where nobody wants to make the wrong move. Enter one Czech politician with a big idea. In April 2015, a Czech right libertarian politician named Vít Jedlička looked at this situation and thought, wait, if nobody's claiming it, then under international law, this is terra nullius, no man's land, and terra nullius can, theoretically, be claimed by anyone. So he took a small group of people, drove out to the largest of these unclaimed western strips, a 7-kilometer square patch of forested floodplain called Gornja Siga, planted a flag and declared the founding of the Free Republic of Liberland. The date was April 13, 2015. He envisioned a libertarian paradise with no income tax, minimal government, an economy running on cryptocurrency, a constitution inspired by Ayn Rand and Ludwig von Mises. Basically the dream of every libertarian who's ever argued on the internet. The world laughed. Then, the world got curious. Then over 200,000 people applied for Liberland citizenship. At one point, there were reportedly over 700,000 citizenship applications being processed. People from Germany, the United States, Ireland, Denmark, everyone wanted in on this little patch of Balkan floodplain. Why Croatia and Serbia won't let it happen? Here's where it gets even more layered. You'd think if neither country wants the land, they'd shrug and let Liberland be. But that's not how this works. Croatia, which has physically been patrolling and administering the land since the Croatian War of Independence in the early 90s, absolutely refuses to let Liberland exist. Not because they're suddenly claiming the land as their own, they're still not doing that, but because allowing a third party to establish a country there would set a terrible legal precedent. If Liberland became a recognized state, it would essentially confirm that the land is terra nullius, which would complicate Croatia's entire legal argument about the bigger border dispute. So their position is, this land should go to either Croatia or Serbia through proper international arbitration, not to some new country founded by a Czech libertarian. Serbia's response was more relaxed. They basically said, Liberland doesn't infringe on their borders, and they consider the whole thing a trivial matter, which sounds chill, but it also means they're not going to support Liberland or push for its recognition either. The Czech Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for its part, told Jedlička to stop embarrassing them and respect local law, and then Croatian police started arresting people. Jedlička got detained twice in the first month alone. Journalists trying to enter got turned back. EU citizens, Americans, Swiss didn't matter. Croatia set up a perimeter and kept people out. In September 2023, Croatian police launched a full intervention, tearing down makeshift wooden structures that Liberland supporters had built. People's property was confiscated. The message was clear: this is not happening. The legal limbo is actually fascinating. From a purely international law standpoint, Liberland exists in this wild gray area. A 2016 article in the Chicago Journal of International Law actually gave serious weight to Jedlička's terra nullius claim. The argument goes like this. Croatia says the land belongs to Serbia. Serbia says it belongs to Croatia. If both countries are essentially renouncing their title to it, does that make it legally unclaimed? Could that actually validate a third-party claim under international law? The honest answer is, probably not, because no UN member state recognizes Liberland, and international recognition is what actually makes a country real in the modern world. You can plant as many flags as you want without recognition, you're just camping. But the legal question itself is genuinely interesting enough that actual law professors are writing about it. That's not nothing. So where does Liberland stand today? As of now, Liberland has 0 permanent residents on the actual territory, still no international recognition, and its self-proclaimed president continues to get blocked every time he tries to physically enter. But the project hasn't died. Jedlička has leaned into the metaverse angle, working with the legendary architecture firm Zaha Hadid Architects to create a virtual version of Liberland online, where its digital citizens can interact. In 2024, Liberland held its first congressional election entirely on blockchain. Whether that's visionary or deeply absurd probably depends on your politics. The physical land, Gornja Siga, remains what it's always been: a quiet stretch of Danubian floodplain, home to wildlife and the occasional frustrated libertarian attempting to sneak in by jet ski. Yes, that actually happened. YouTuber Niko Omilana did exactly this in 2023 and got confronted by Croatian police on camera. The underlying border dispute between Croatia and Serbia, still unresolved. No arbitration date set. No agreement in sight. Until that gets sorted, Liberland's land remains in legal limbo, too politically complicated for anyone to claim, too strategically important for anyone to abandon.